Hi everyone, this is Heather Lawtonen from the Flourish.Academy. This is episode 284. I was teaching the exposure triangle a few days ago and we were talking about shutter speed, and I wanted to give you guys this quick tip just in case you didn't know. Of course, the shutter speed is the amount of time that the aperture remains open, and it's measured in seconds. So if you have a really small number, say like 30, that's actually 1/30th of a second. 1/30th of a second is relatively slow for a shutter speed, lets in a lot of light, but also allows blur into the image. Conversely, if you have a fast shutter speed, say 1/2000th of a second, which is literally a split second, you let very little light into the sensor, but you get an incredibly sharp image. Shutter speed and sharpness go hand in hand. But I wanted to say this. Every camera, Nikon and Canon, approach this a little bit differently. For instance, on the top of your Nikon camera, you might see the number for shutter speed represented as 15. I have 15 here now, but that is an implied fraction. That's 1/15th of a second. Now, some of the Canon models will show that as 1/15th of a second. And 1/15th of a second, by the way, if you listen to it, it sounds fast, but it's not. Very slow. Let's listen to this. This is 2 or 1/2 of a second. So listen to 1/2. Can you hear that? You can discern between the opening and closing of the shutter. Click, click. 1/2 of a second. Very, very slow. Tons of light, but with motion blur. Obviously, if you're going to shoot at slow shutter speeds to capture motion on purpose, you would want to use a tripod. But actually, the quick tip is this. If your camera says 2, it's an implied fraction, 1/2. But if it says 2 with quotes after it, 2 with quotes means 2 seconds. Now there's a big difference between 1/2 of a second, or 0.5, and 2 seconds. Listen to this. This is a 2-second shutter. It's really slow, tons of light, but it's completely washed out and blurry. So if you see the quotes, that means seconds. If you do not see quotes, it's an implied fraction. Now, what you can get away with really depends on 2 factors. How steady are you, and how still is your subject? If your subject is still, okay, let me give you how I approach it. If my subject is still, I can handhold at 1/60th pretty well without much trouble, sometimes down to 1/50th, even 1/30th I've done when bracing myself. But that is very dangerous. Obviously, the faster the better. It's just a lot of times I need light. But I have an assistant who works with me who really cannot shoot below 1/250th of a second because he's just not as steady as I am. It really depends on you. Also, your camera, what lens you have mounted. So if you have a heavier lens, obviously you need to brace yourself and make sure that that's steady. You can start taking better photos tomorrow if you watch that shutter speed. The faster, the better, because that will result in a sharper image. Of course, all things considered, meaning you're hitting the focus, your aperture is correct, etc. Now, we just don't always have enough light for that. So sometimes you have to push yourself beyond your comfort zone. Also, I was putting a card in the camera as I was getting ready to go live, and I had left this card in my jeans pocket, which is not good card management. It was not for a client shoot. I would never behave that way. It was just my personal photos, and it went through the washer. So it still works. I've tested it, but I marked it. Can you see that? I marked it with a W for water, meaning do not use this card ever for clients, only for your personal work. And we'll see how it goes. I'll just replace it. I'll buy a new one, but I thought that was kind of funny. If you are still struggling with exposure, I teach the exposure triangle courses all the time, but I recently recorded it and have it online now. There are 6 videos with 1 bonus video. We go over metering, ISO, shutter speed, and aperture extensively in this, what I'm calling a mini online course. You can get through it pretty quickly. It's really inexpensive. I'm going to post the link below. So if you have any issues with the exposure triangle, shutter speed, aperture, ISO, or you're not understanding metering, then you'll definitely want to check out this course. I hope that you found this useful. I'll see you in the next video.